Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And today I have an awesome lady joining us. Her name is Deneen Joyner from the greatest city in the world, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is where she's coming in from. So, hey, stay with us. We'll be right back. And we're back. And I want to bring the amazing Deneen Joyner on with us. Hang on, let me get her in here. Boom. Welcome to the show, Deneen.
Thank you for having me, Ken.
I'm excited that you're here. So, wow, you're in Pittsburgh, which is one of my favorite, if not my favorite city, one of my favorite cities for sure. So, Deneen, I created this show about 2.5 years ago. And it was really to help people get unstuck. And I think that we go through things in life, we experience painful events, and people get stuck there. And I truly believe that by hearing other people's stories of how they plowed through all that and succeeded anyway, I think it's healing for us. So that's what this show's about, is your story. And hopefully you have some pain in there.
I have lots of pain.
So let's start with where you were born and raised.
Yes, well, you mentioned I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, born and raised here. Awesome. And grew up in the 70s. So I'm in my mid 50s. And yes, and so it was very interesting growing up here, Ken, because the climate for diversity was not, like it is today, as far as just being, consciously aware of other people's differences and things of that nature. So I was really struggling with that, with just being this young girl of two blended cultures. And those cultures were Native American and African. So my mother is Native American and my father is actually African, and he does have some Native American as well. But wow. So those were the cultures that I knew of. And so I identified though as a Black girl. And that was primarily because my mother had some fears of her own growing up. And, of just being seen as Native American and what that would mean to her life and maybe some disadvantages. So it was all fear-based for her. Yeah. She transferred that fear to me. And so in my sisters, Mom. Yes, I know, right? And so, so it was kind of like a, behind the scenes thing. Yeah. The fear. And then what also ended up happening with, just trying to understand my identity and what that meant for me was I started to, at the age of 5, I started to encounter some supernatural abilities surrounding. Whoa. Yeah. How about that? Surrounding. The first thing was that I started to be able to see and hear angels. Mm. And so they appeared around the time that I was 5, like I mentioned. And not only that, but my home, the climate in my home was starting to become very chaotic, meaning that my parents were struggling in their marriage. My father had some infidelity issues, and my mother was trying to hide that from us. And because I was starting to become aware and in touch with my empath abilities, sensing and feeling other people's emotions and things that they were struggling with, I started to sense and feel these things within my mother. And you can only imagine at the age of 5 trying to figure out what is this? Why do I feel this? And trying to compartmentalize it, because I knew on some levels it wasn't mine, but I didn't have, the language to articulate what was going on clearly. So at 5, how could I?
Right, right.
So I did what most people do when they encounter things that are kind of like makes you scratch your head and or, painful on some levels, is that you don't even look at it. You just kind of just file it away.
Right.
And
That's not real.
right.
Right.
Yes.
That's not really happening.
Exactly. Yeah. So more of that started to happen with just different things, abilities, my gifts really started to come into full throttle, if you will. And I noticed them, like I said, they would become more apparent to me when there was distress in my home. So it was almost like a safe haven, if you will. I was actually being ushered into spirit world and being protected. And so it was cool for me to be able to have the ability to actually leave this earthly space and go there and be protected and, and be entertained, if you will. Yeah. And then, unfortunately have to come back and realize, the reality that was playing out in my home life at the time. And so, I never told anybody that I had these abilities. I had that wise soul wisdom. It said you better keep it to yourself because nobody will probably believe you.
Yeah.
And you'll be ridiculed, even further, because I always felt like.
Did you feel like they might lock you away in a padded room?
Oh, for sure.
Right.
I probably would have had a custom made one, Ken, for sure.
Right.
So I said, keep it to yourself. And can you imagine just like, again, a 5-year-old, 7-year-old moving through life with all of this stuff, not having anybody to really talk to about it, not really having the language to even explore it, even with yourself, you just kind of just went through the motions. And there was a lot of things, neglect, a lot of emotional neglect, a lot of financial neglect. So we didn't have the things that we needed growing up. So we lacked a lot. And when you don't have the things you need as a child, that's more pain. Yeah. Because then you start to internalize it and you really think on some levels, there's something wrong with you. Why can't I have the things that I need? Forget the things that I want, but the things, just the basics, especially when you're seeing your friends or people, around you who have these things readily. And it's like nothing to them, but it's something to you. And because you don't have it, you feel lost and you feel a sense of abandonment, self-abandonment.
Right. Wow. So, and this is you're starting to realize that you have these gifts. We'll start with one gift, and that is some sort of God-given ability to remove yourself, at least spiritually, from the environment. Was there violence? Is that the?
Not towards me, but towards my mother. So there was verbal and physical attacks from my father. My father was very, he was in and out of the home because of his infidelity.
Yeah.
And he was an entrepreneur, so he worked a lot. And then when he would come home, his way of getting back out was to pick a fight. And so that was his MO. And because I was the youngest, I'm the youngest of 7. I'm the baby girl.
Wow.
I know, right? And so it often left me, there with my mom because my older sisters were doing their thing, and I always had, that sense of responsibility. I, even as a child, I felt like everything was my responsibility, even my mother's well-being.
Yeah.
Whenever, as you mentioned, whenever my father physically abused her, I was the one who would console her. I was the one who would run and get cold washcloths to apply to her bruises and confront her and about it and comfort her. on a lot of different levels, and that's a lot for a child.
Did you ever ask her or say to her, you need to leave him, you need to get away? Did it ever occur to you as a child to,
no, which is
no?
very interesting. No, I never, I never approached her about leaving him. I think really on some levels, Ken, I think that I had the hindsight that on some levels that this basically was my reality, her reality. And I think that if she would have, left on her own, I think things would have definitely, believe it or not, gotten even worse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think so for sure. So I think, it was kind of like, okay, he's not here that much. So, and so that's kind of how like she played her cards, was that, whenever he came, she knew what she was going to have to endure, let him do whatever and leave. And so in a young girl seeing this happen to her mother, seeing her father do this to her mother, and and then not be there to actually just take care of you, it really does a number on your soul and your spirit, for sure.
That's yep. I can relate. So I and it's unfortunate, but so you and were you, what part of Pittsburgh were you? Right in the heart of Pittsburgh? Or?
Yes, we were primarily in the east.
Okay,
the east of Pittsburgh.
So you are, you're going to school, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And did you end up going through high school? Did you graduate high school?
I did. Did. Miraculously, I was able to pull through, to focus, to get, nothing but the grace of God, for sure, because there was so much going on. There were, unfortunately, I was sexually assaulted for months from a family member when I was 16. That went on for months, and I never told anyone that because my life was threatened. So I endured that. And then later on, I was date raped when I was a sophomore in college. So I did go to college.
Wow.
And so I had things that, perpetuated and continued when it related to pain.
Yeah.
And I never unpacked it, which is so, interesting, as later on I became a social worker, worked with people, who was in the throes of their, their pain, and trying to get their life back on track, very successful career in that, helping people to do that, but yet I could not figure out how to unpack my own and to help myself until much later.
Wow. So you went to college. Where'd you go to, in Pittsburgh?
I actually went to WVU.
Oh, did you go to, did you? Nice. Down in Morgantown.
Yeah. In Morgantown. Nice. So I have my bachelor's in psychology, and then later on, in 2011, I actually pursued my master's in adult education and curriculum design.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jiminy Christmas.
Yeah.
So you go down to Morgantown. You're in West Virginia. Well, I lived in West Virginia for 5 years. I was down in Charleston though, but
okay. Yeah. That's beautiful.
It's beautiful, but man, it's a different country.
Oh, it is. I would agree.
It's completely different.
It is.
So, you were down in Morgantown, West Virginia. You went to college down there, and then you ended up moving back to Pittsburgh.
I did.
Was that right after college? You went back to Pittsburgh?
I came right back.
Is that when you started your career in the
not right away, but eventually I finally got my foot in the door and did adoptions for a number of years. So adoptions is like near and dear to my heart. Those families, children. I was responsible for doing home studies for parents, families who wanted to adopt. And, so I did all ages, babies, young children. And I did that for 5 years.
Oh my goodness.
Very rewarding, very rewarding.
Wow. That's so awesome. And it's so needed.
It is
in this world. I mean, it's so needed.
Still needed.
And you know what's well, I have a story I'll tell you offline about
Okay.
that. It's
Okay.
um so excuse me. So somehow you got through all of that. You ended up going to college, which is impressive. And then you moved back to Pittsburgh, and eventually you got into the social work
Mhm.
stuff in Pittsburgh, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And how long did you do the social work stuff?
A little over 18 years.
Oh, wow. That's a long time
It is.
in
Yeah.
one place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I moved to Dallas for a number of years and I did it there too.
okay.
It was more administrative, though. I worked for the area agency on aging
Okay.
and did some things with them. But yeah, primarily,
Yeah.
always in the social work or behind the scenes facilitating, programs that can help the community, things of that
Yeah.
nature. So always in the role of facilitating, help, healing, growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, like, when you became an adult, excuse me, when you became an adult, you did you see, or looking back now, I guess,
Mhm.
because hindsight's always easier. Looking back, do you see where some of that stuff that happened as a child and as a teenager, did it have any kind of a negative impact in your life as an adult?
Oh, for sure.
What
Oh my
what are
goodness.
some of the things that you see now that you were like, oh yeah, that impacted this, and
Yes, for sure. Like, believe it or not, like I had never seen my mother cry. Other than when, even when the pain was inflicted upon her with my father, it was not the type of, you know, crying that you would normally see if somebody was really, badly hurt. But I mean, outside of those moments, like, I've seen her sad, but never emote, never cry, never really
Mm,
show her emotions. And that transferred over to me. And I didn't realize that I was, during, um, my formative years as a child, like it wasn't my first go to cry. I kept everything inside. And so moving along, as a young girl and later woman, again, that wasn't my first go-to to cry. I would journal. That's how I got my emotions out, through just writing. But to express myself. So I saw that. I started to see, once I started my healing journey in 2011, where everything just kind of like fell out. Um, the bottom fell out. I hit rock bottom, and I was basically forced into a new life, a new way of being, instead of carrying this muck around, that
mhm.
I had begrudgingly and figured out how to do it. I decided that I could not do it anymore. And so I needed to, give myself the same permission, the same support, the same love and advocacy that I had given so many other people.
Right.
And I needed to learn how to do that for myself. And so I did that. I started to look at my life with a new lens. I started to, instead of being biased, and blaming and shaming myself for things that I had no control over whatsoever,
Yeah.
I really had to, give myself that compassion and really give myself forgiveness for those things that I thought that I really did have responsibility for. And once I started to do that, then that lens shifted, and I could really see a young girl who really did not have what she needed.
Yeah.
And so, using that social work hat of mine greatly helped me to uncover and really see how I came to be. And I was able to, like you mentioned, see the things that were glaring to me, such as not having that emotional framework to go
Right.
off, a healthy one, not really having a true model for one either,
Yeah.
not having anyone really to talk to me when I was upset, or even feel comfortable enough. So I had to relearn a lot, where it came to my emotions. And, and I would have to say the thing that really spurred me and kept me going, Ken, throughout this journey of mine to uncover, who I am emotionally, was that I needed to always become curious. I needed to keep insatiable curiosity about who is Deneen? How did she get here? And I had all of the answers because, of course, I've been there since day one. So,
Right.
I knew who the players were. I knew what they showed me. I knew, how it was showing up even today. And I have to say that along with curiosity, being conscious, staying conscious is the key to being able to move forward with any type of healing journey. Being conscious every day. It's not just okay, I'm going to heal my life. I'm finally going to unpack and then expect it to miraculously just unfold. You have to really commit to it, and you really have to literally partner with yourself to do the work.
So I have a question, a couple of them. This, by the way, is a client and friend of mine, Laura. She's a nurse practitioner, and she works with a lot of older geriatric, I don't know what you call them, like the older patients. So she's probably going to say something to me now. But what is VAAA? What is that? I love VAAA.
I don't know.
Huh. So how about approximately, I'm not trying to, well, you told everybody you're in your mid 50s or whatever, but
yeah, I'm actually 56.
Are you really? That is unbelievable. Wow. You do not look 56 at all.
That's because my soul is 20.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
area on aging.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, and Laura refuses to go over to StreamYard.com/Facebook to approve Facebook to show her name and face. But anyway, so, about how old were you when you started waking up to the reality that, this crap that went on as a child is impacting me in a negative way?
I think that, to be honest, people awaken throughout their life at different stages. There's always some trigger. There's a trigger that usually takes you back, and you start to see that, however you've been living is not it. So there was a significant thing that occurred in 2011 when I was 47, for sure, that prompted everything. But I have to say, before that, there was periods in my life, in my 20s, in my 30s, 40s, where you just got that visceral, this is not the life that I want. How can I get out of it? But you're still spinning and you don't know how to get out of it. So I've always had those awakenings, and I believe that that's what people have until they actually awaken. And so what happened to me, because I had no more room in my soul to hold on to all of this that had happened throughout my life. Like I said, I was actually forced into hitting rock bottom and deciding that, it was time for me to move forward and to stop holding on to it and feeling like I had no other choice. I was, literally a hostage to my pain, like most people. And so, so it was when I was 47, I saw that it was time. It was time, and I could feel it and sense it. And that's when I started to really do that deep inventory of my life, and recognizing, the things that no longer served me, the things that I used to do to try to keep things even keel and to be able to continue to carry it and move forward, know.
So like what you said, you were hitting rock bottom. I'm a recovered alcoholic with 18 years sober, so I know all about rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that mean though to you? I mean, I was homeless and done. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so what's that look like for you?
There was a string of things that had happened consecutively within, I would say, a year's time. One of which was that I decided that I wanted to change careers. And
Mm,
so I took my retirement, my savings, and I invested it into a business. And within probably 8 months, that was it. It was over. So
oh,
I was
wow.
out of, yeah, so I was out of money,
Ouch.
and I was out of hope. And then I still didn't give up. I said, okay, I'm going to keep plugging along.
Yeah.
And, and I went back to social work, and also enrolled in the master's program I told you about, because I said I can shift gears. I've always enjoyed educating people. So that's where I was headed, was to
Okay.
that. But I was still trying to pick up the pieces to my life, and I was literally sleeping on, friends and family, their couches till I could put my life back together, till I could get an apartment, and it was just like a really dark place for me after being so successful. So I thought, and, and just being independent, to have to rely and open myself up and be so vulnerable at that time really made me feel like, what's the point? And then what
Mm,
ended up happening was my vehicle, the only vehicle that I had actually was so proud and had gotten a couple years before, was repoed.
yeah.
And so, because I missed payments on it.
Yeah,
And
the bank, I've found that out too. The bank really does enjoy getting their payments.
yeah, and they could care less if you're, if you're
Yeah.
actually in the throes of something, like,
Yeah, they
whatever.
don't care about your emotional
Yeah,
pain.
they don't
No.
care.
No.
So when they, when they came and actually took my vehicle, it felt like they had actually repoed my soul.
Yeah.
And so that was the rock bottom moment for me, where I really didn't feel like I had any more tricks in my bag. I didn't even care to use any tricks anymore. I was at ground zero, literally.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize, though, that ground zero was where I needed to be in order to give up all of the control, all of the things that I thought my life was supposed to look like
Yeah.
and be. And so it was a good thing that I got to ground zero. Unfortunately, the way that, that it unraveled, it had to, because unfortunately, like most people, signs had been sent to me throughout my life that it
Yeah.
was time for me to, really just atone and heal, that I ignored. And so when you ignore the signs, when you feel like you have more time, then, spiritually, you don't have more time. You don't realize that.
Right.
But more signs are going to continue to happen. And they're actually going to, really increase, and, and to get your attention. And so unfortunately for some people, that increase could look like, being diagnosed with, with an illness, or losing your home, or whatever it is, whatever that pause is. It's a pause, and it's placed there for a reason. It's placed to get your attention. It's placed for you to actually start to do that self inventory.
Yep.
And, you're not going to do it if you feel like you still have tricks in your bag. You feel like you're managing to get through each day, doing whatever it is that you do to numb it, to stay, to keep, believing that, you're okay with carrying this pain. And you're not okay. We're not designed to carry pain, which is the reason why it gets worse and worse with every day that you do nothing about it.
And you know what's interesting that I found? There's a book that I just love called Power versus Force. And it's all about kinesiology, and he talks about in the book that everything that we are pushing against, like, when we're trying to force something, force our way through those days that you're talking about, like, we're automatically creating resistance in the universe, and that when we surrender, that's where true power comes in.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
what you're talking about. and
Yes.
and and I think that what's crazy is we don't have to hit rock bottom.
No, we don't.
We really don't.
We
Although
don't.
it is a great launching pad, sometimes rock bottom can mean death, and
Yeah.
and then you're launching nowhere. So, I love the direction that this story is going. So at 47 years old, you're sleeping on friends' couches or wherever you'd said. Your car got repoed. They're really good at finding those cars too. They are those sneaky.
Yeah, they are.
But so your car got repoed. You're at rock bottom. You're like, okay, I you're basically in surrender mode. I don't know.
I was for sure
Yeah.
surrender mode, and I've always had a deep relationship with God since I was 5, which was something that developed just naturally, which it should instead of being enforced upon you. It happened naturally for me. I often knew that whatever was transpiring in my home, that nobody down here was going to be able to help me. So I often called on God, and again, that's when I was always surrounded and taken. So it was the same thing in this moment where I hit, literally was on my knees in the bathroom, and just called on God and said, I know this is not it. I know that you did not bring me this far to have me just give up. This cannot be it. And so I asked him to become my teacher. I said, whatever it is I've been missing, I'm open to, your direction and correction. Please help me. And it was like radio silence for a number of days. It felt like weeks, but it was really only days. And I thought to myself, oh my God, what did I do? Like, hello, like, did you hear me? Like,
did you not hear me? We have a problem here, Houston.
Help me. But what I saw, Ken, was that the first lesson that he wanted to impart was patience.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to be still and be quiet and not rush in, because I tell you, I was tempted to. A couple times I was just like grappling with, okay, I cannot deal with this silence. I need some direction here. What is it can you do? And it was just like blank. I could not even think of anything. So it was like he just removed all of that normal, rushing in to do something, which is, like I said, he didn't want me to do that. And so, over the months that progressed, my journey was a little over 3 years.
Wow.
What ended up happening was I started to become more attuned with my gifts, because at some point, what I didn't mention is that I started to become and feel like an outcast because of these gifts. I knew, I felt on some levels that they weren't normal. And because I didn't have anybody to really talk to explore them, I just really denied them, realizing later that denying them was really the biggest part of who I am are my gifts. And so denying them really alienated myself, from who I am, which caused even deeper pain and turmoil for me. So during this healing journey of mine, I became reacquainted, if you will, with their beauty. And I also became connected to my ancestors who had been waiting for me to start this healing journey and to guide me and to help me through. So I started to connect with them and to hear them, hear their thoughts about emotional pain, which is really not sent to, to tear us apart, to make us stay stuck and unfulfilled. It's really to prepare us, for something greater that's been waiting for us. It's a preparation that nobody really wants to go through, but it's necessary. And so I learned so much during this journey through them. And also being able to go back and sit with my mother to talk to her about our culture, and to also learn a lot more about my father's side of the family, who I had been estranged from because of my parents ultimately divorcing.
So you went and physically sat with your mother and I thought we were talking about the spiritual side. So you went and talked to your mom,
Yes.
and was there anger? Was there did you?
No, there wasn't, it is so interesting. I've never had any anger towards my mother. And, and rightly so, I could have, on a lot of different levels, I really could. But I saw her as, like she stayed. She could have
Yeah,
left. She could have left and left us, like in foster care or with,
right.
whoever. She didn't
Yeah,
do that. So it was, anger never really came up for me when it came to her. Um, it was
that's
readily
awesome.
easy for my father, of course,
Yeah,
because I was like, hey, if it wasn't for you, so I had to even, heal through that. I had to heal through, you know, um, through both sides, to be perfectly honest. Like my mother, she played a role in this as well. Like I said, she played the cards that she felt like she had to play. Now, did she play them right? I don't know. I was impacted by, what she played. However, I understand now as a woman and, and having a son of my own, sacrifices that you have to make as a single parent, and, and being able to do that. And so sitting with her allowed me to really get clear on a lot of trajectory when it came to the emotional framework of my family.
right.
And so, that's something that I would really, you know, um, tell your listeners if they can, explore that. Most people, they kind of know they're crazy, if you will. They'll say they're family drama or whatever, but go deeper than, just the family get-togethers that maybe go awry or, whatever. Um, Go further, go back in time and see how far back you can go as to, the things that seem to be prevalent, that are, that thread that just continues to be there, all the time. Like you mentioned, maybe there was drug and alcohol in your family. Maybe there was a string of divorces. Nobody seems to be able to stay married. Maybe there are abandonment issues, or, intimate issues with your parents, mother or father. And look back and see if you can go back a generation and see, if those things are still, showing up in the generation before you and those before. Those are threads. Those are things that you can start to look at, and see how they are playing out in your life, and, and how they're showing up for you.
Right.
And, and you have the power, to examine them, and see how you can actually begin to heal those things within you.
So you started this journey of exploring at 47 years old, you said.
Yes.
um and we're, I mean, you talked about having these gifts of these spiritual gifts at 5, 6, 7 years old. You realized, you go through college, you start this career. Were you aware, even though things were wonky in life, were you aware that these gifts were still there the whole time? Were you like, no, you lost touch with them?
I
Wow.
I lost touch in the sense that there was a level of consciousness.
Right.
They were always there. They were always in
Sure.
the foreground. I know that, the success that I've had in my career had everything to do with those abilities. Being able to tap into other people's feelings, emotions, giving them basically the empowerment to turn their life around, using their language that they understood,
Yeah.
really being able to meet them where they are. All of those things are part of my gifts, you know.
Wow.
So I was doing it. I just wasn't giving it credit as to that's what I was doing. But clearly that's what I was doing. It
Wow.
wasn't until later on, until my healing journey started, until I, invited them wholeheartedly back in. I, recognized the power that they hold, and, and that they are at the core of who I am.
Right.
And, doing that, of course, now I'm consciously aware of them and I invite
Yeah.
them in all the time.
Sure.
That's the only way that I can live now, is to be surrounded and to tap into them so that I can help other people, and guide them to their, through and to the other side of pain.
So, so you said you went through this for a few years, this
Yes.
kind of recovery
Yes.
process. Was there a day when you're like, was there a moment where you were like, I feel like my soul is healed now?
Yes. Yes.
There was.
Yes. October 8th, 2014.
Oh, snap. She even knows the date. Gee,
Yeah.
man, Christmas.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happened? How did you realize? Like,
I know, right? So, yeah, so it was a little over 3 years of me just really sticking and staying to this journey,
yeah,
and, just really, really, not giving up, being elevated, and having revelations about my soul wounds, all the things that I spoke of earlier in the show, and really just being able to, tie it to certain things and to become more consciously aware of lessons that I had missed before that really were healing lessons for these wounds. And so I became more consciously aware of the lessons that were associated to these wounds, and how, if I could stay conscious and aware of them when they showed up, that I could master them and I could respond differently instead of responding to pain the same way, which really would just fulfill me being stuck and
right,
unfulfilled. So I did that for a little over 3 years, just really ramped it up, really studied myself. I became literally a student of myself.
wow,
And what ended up happening was, the morning of October 8th, I awakened in the morning. It was around 3 a.m. And I felt like I was dreaming because it was so peaceful, calm. It was a calm that I had never, ever felt in my life. And, and I was afraid to move, Ken, because I thought, you must be dreaming. There's no way that you could feel this deep, profound peace and
mm,
bliss. But, I said, okay, I'm going to move. I challenged myself. I said, if it's a dream, it'll go away. And if it's real, then it won't. And, and I quietly got up and I went out into the living room, sat in the dark, and it did not leave. And what transpired rapidly after that was, again, all of my ancestors, I could hear them. It was like they were all talking at the same time. And I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute. Like, I can't understand, because there was so many voices. And I sat, quietly. And then all of a sudden there was just one voice. And, that voice basically was just telling me, that everything that I had endured, it was almost just like, how your life flashes before you.
yeah,
I would envision before you die, but this was my life flashing for me, because I was actually living now. And everything that I had endured painful made perfect sense. I understood, all of it. And it made perfect sense to me that, that the lessons and things that I had encountered throughout this healing journey had to happen. And now, I was giving, the total healing, that allowed me to understand that, my destiny was to, now that I had went through this journey successfully, got all of the elements that I needed to, that I would now be able to use all of my ancestors' Native American inspired healing practices to impart to other people. So this
wow,
became apparent to me that what they call holy assignment, the reason, true reason why you're here, everybody has one, and it's revealed to them, once they do their healing work, once divine feels they've been prepared and they're ready to actually, help other people,
right,
then it's revealed. And so my holy assignment was revealed to me. And one of the things was for me to share with other people this blueprint for healing, for soul healing. And it's organic, it's natural. And you use everything that you know about your life and yourself in order to activate it. And you learn how to partner with yourself. You learn how to really open yourself up, as you mentioned, surrender, and to remain conscious throughout the journey. So I wrote the book as a part of that holy assignment so that people who I may never, meet or speak to would actually have a framework using my life as the backdrop to start their healing journey. And then I also do, as you already know, I do private coaching and public speaking,
Yeah.
using my gifts to actually in real time help people with their questions about their life and to help them navigate and see things in a different light.
That is absolutely wonderful. Why don't you show everybody your book? Hold your book up there.
Sure. Yes.
Soul Wounds, Sacred Revelations.
Yes.
That is a warrior daughter's awakening to pain and destiny.
Yes.
That's amazing. That is
Thank
amazing.
You. Yes.
So I'm gonna grab the link here. So anybody that would like to go grab a copy of your book can do so.
Yes, thank you.
And there is a little apparently we were talking about this. There's a little bit of a faux pas on Amazon. The hardback version is showing on Amazon. Well, here I'll just let me just share. I'll share the page. We'll just surprise everybody. There we go. It's you can get the hardcover version for $249.99 today and today only. It's not $249. There's a little bit of an error, but you can get the paperback version for $14.99, and once they have that error fixed, it's $24.99 for the hardcover, correct?
It is, yes.
Okay. And then it says Kindle's $3.99. But when I first logged in, it said it was $0. So I don't know what's going on with that. But yes. So there's the book. Everybody needs to read the book for sure.
Yes, they'll get something out of it. It's the type of read where you can't put it down. And not only that, but every time you read it, I always encourage readers to read it several different times. And, you're going to get something different out of it every time you read it. It's one of those types of books where you're going to be taking notes, highlighting, having so many ahas about your own life.
That is so awesome. So let me ask you a question. Do you, because, I grew up in a lot of insanity, and for the longest time, I know for a fact that I sabotaged the crap out of everything I did in life. It was because I walked around feeling like a victim all the time. I felt like a victim.
Sure.
And I always unconsciously looked for, situations I would put myself in where I would end up being the victim.
Yeah.
And I think that from what I've seen is a lot of people experience that. Have you seen that? Like a lot of people go through that.
Yeah, like you said, it's unconscious, it's an unconscious thing that happens, but it's also, again, talking about those lessons, those soul lessons that are out there that we're not aware of.
Yeah.
But if you were aware, just think about whatever it is, if you were aware of your wounds, such as they are, and these things happen to you, you were consciously aware of them, then you would know that whatever was going on, playing out, was something that you needed to lean in and examine and respond differently to it instead of letting it happen to you.
Yeah.
When you don't know, then of course you're not going to respond differently, and you're not going to be consciously aware, and you're not going to be in control. It's because you don't have that level of awareness that, these things appear to be attracted to you, and they're attracted to you for a reason. They're attracted so that you will pause and look and say, Groundhog's Day, like, why does this keep happening? Like, what's going on? What's up with that? But how many people get sick and tired?
Yep. It's true. It's true. So are you still doing social work at all, or are
No,
you're
no,
full-time speaker
yeah,
and
yeah,
coach? And that's so awesome.
yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's very, very rewarding. I
Yeah.
work with all different types of people. And, one of the cool things that I do now with my gifts is I have the ability to connect to the person who I'm working with, their ancestors. So I'm able I'm a soul medium, which
Yeah.
means basically I have the ability to tap into another person's soul with permission as I'm working with them
Wow.
to actually gather their soul wounds, to identify their soul wounds, to identify their family karma, those generational things that we spoke of earlier, to also identify some of the lessons they need to be mindful of,
Yeah.
their triggers. And so then I'm also able to connect with their ancestors, usually one in particular, who is their main guide, who actually will impart some additional enlightenment about their life and things that they need to be mindful of. And
Wow.
so I actually hear them and I take notes, and I deliver what's called a soul reading. So soul readings are basically the way and the reason people find me. They go to my website and they go for a soul reading. And soul reading is really, really comprehensive. It's a blueprint, spiritual blueprint, and it's downloaded from the person's soul to mine. And I write everything up, and then I actually meet with them for 2 hours scheduled on Zoom, and it's recorded. I deliver everything to them, and
Wow.
people are blown away because the only thing that I ask is for their name and their parents' name, and that's it. And then 3 days later, I meet them for the first time, literally. So I channel
Wow.
all of this. So it's not like a psychic reading where I'm, meeting you for the first time and I'm doing this and getting. I do this before I even meet you. I get,
Wow.
yeah,
What's your website address?
yes, it's DeneenJoyner.com.
Deneen, whoops,
Joyner.com.
Joyner.com. I should have had that scrolling this whole time. Didn't think
Yes,
about that. So is
yes.
that, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Hmm.
So DeneenJoyner.com. And are what's the best social media? Where can people follow you?
I have a Facebook page called Choose to Be Empowered.
Is that linked from DeneenJoyner.com?
Actually, no, it's not on there. Ironically, no, it's not. So if you want to put that up, Choose to
Okay.
Be Empowered is the page that they can actually follow me on. Choose to Be Empowered. But if they want direct, communication, they can just go to DeneenJoyner.com. There's so many ways on there that they can work with me. They can get a spiritual session. They can get, a one-on-one, and they can get their soul reading, and they can work with me privately for,
Wow.
2 months, 4 months, whatever the need is.
That is absolutely amazing. My wife's on here. She's impressed with what you do. So,
Oh, thank you.
I think that it's impressive what you've gone through, what you what here she put it up as well. So thank you, Jill. What you've gone through and what you've overcome and gotten dug into the truth about and
Yes,
recovered from it, right?
yes, yes, yes,
And you've been able to reframe the entire thing. Like you've reframed the entire thing. So my wife is saying, how do we get to look 25 like you do? Right? No kidding. Jeez, that's amazing. So what about the I got to ask you about the it looks like teardrop.
teardrop.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's like my signature, that I use to really um, empower people to do their work, because they are illuminating teardrops. And
Yeah.
so that means that you're working through something on purpose. And so you're going to have teardrops for sure. But when they fall, you'll know that they're lighting a path somewhere to you. and that, they're not just in vain. They're not just tears for tears' sake, that you're doing the work, that, they're taking you somewhere purposely, and that at some point you're going to arrive, and you're going to be okay. Thanks
I
for asking.
think I had to. I'm not letting that slide. So every picture I saw of you on the internet, I'm like, what are these teardrops? I gotta
Yes,
ask her about that. So
yes,
so I mean, there's a lot of I think people need to realize that, and I said this on a Facebook Live recently. I'm like, look, y'all do realize how politics works, right? Like, we're all being played. Like, Democrats and Republicans and they all
yeah.
play golf together after they stir up all the
Mhm,
crap, so stop.
mhm.
But in the midst of all of this craziness going on in the world, and there is a lot of it, at least
There
the
is.
news is reporting.
There's a lot of
um,
crazy.
and you know, a buddy of mine runs the suicide hotline for the state of Ohio, and the calls are through the like
I can imagine.
never been this high ever.
Yeah.
And suicides, actually, people going through with it, are
Oh,
never been higher. And so, in the midst of all of this stuff going on in the world, the racism, the all of the craziness happening, what do you say to the world to help them bring peace to their hearts and their lives?
I would say, there is a core of peace within all of us that we have lost touch with. We came into this world with it. It is our birthright. Pain is not our birthright. Peace is. And if
Right.
you can say that to yourself, I'm being distracted. We all are being distracted by what is playing out. We can feel it. You can cut the tension with a knife. The things that you see on TV,
Yep.
really just kind of exasperate the whole thing. But if you can really just walk away from that, find some time to carve out in your day, and just really just sit and acknowledge to yourself that there is a peace that dwells deep within you, and call in your divine, your divine comfort, as far as, whatever you believe in. I think that sometimes people can lose sight of that simple belief. We've all been through some trying times throughout our childhood, but we're still here. And, it would be easy just to say, okay, this is how life is going to be, but it's not. This is a test for all of us,
Yep.
you know, and we all have to do our part so that collectively, the cloud that we feel, the darkness that we feel, can lift. So all that we can do is individually just take some responsibility, as far as just being able to sit with yourself, and to be able to acknowledge some things. And it's okay. You don't have to have the answers right now. Just the simple acknowledgement of, I feel afraid. That's powerful to say that. It's when you say you don't feel afraid, when you do, is when you go against the grain, and it makes it worse. But
Yep.
just being honest with yourself, being truthful in this moment, you know, and finding a level of peace within yourself, not on the outside, but keep it within. Seek your own solace. Don't go outside of yourself for it. Look for it within. And be kind and be gentle with yourself, especially right now. People are so quick to just beat themselves up, especially now,
Yeah.
and be so, we can really, really be mean to ourselves without even trying, you know. And I would say, really just try to, you know, be kinder to yourself, be softer to yourself, and be loving. That same love that you extend to other people, that you have been throughout this pandemic, give it to yourself first.
Amen. I love that. I love that. What do you think and I ask this question of every guest. It's always the final question. what do you think holds people back in life from experiencing success and joy and happiness and financial well-being? What do you think the number one thing is?
Themselves and what they tell themselves and what they saw. It's that, what you have been surrounded by growing up, becomes basically your blueprint, if you will. And if it's not a healthy one, then, you tend to think that it is until somebody tells you differently. And so the things that, the disparaging things that we've heard about ourselves from possibly other people, it might have even been our parents, friends, family, whatever, you hear that it becomes a recording within yourself, and it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. Yeah. And so, those things that we tell ourselves when we're alone sometimes are less than, and they're not, they're not very kind, which is what I'm speaking to. At some point you have to break your own heart, is what I say. Breaking your own heart means not believing those things because they're not true. And deep down inside, we know that they're not true. That's why there's that discomfort. Yeah. That's why, why spirit and God is asking you to do something differently, to believe something differently. And, if you can challenge yourself to look for those clues, to prove yourself wrong. Prove yourself wrong is what I say. And that's what spurred me. I wanted to prove myself wrong because I thought, some very bad things about myself too. I didn't think that I was capable of doing certain things, that I wouldn't get beyond a certain point in my life, that I would always carry pain. And that was further from the truth. And I was ready to challenge myself and say, if that's what you really believe, then game on. Let's go for it. Let's see if we can find this to be true. Yeah. And what I found was the opposite. I found once I unraveled everything and actually connected the dots and saw how I learned and who my teachers were and what they taught me and how that transpired and how I lived that out instead of what God had already put down on the inside of me, that, that it was that was already recorded on my heart through God, that really is what I needed to be following instead of what I thought that I was supposed to be following. So it takes, a level of commitment to actually prove yourself wrong and believe that you're so much more than what you think. And even in this moment that you're so much more.
I say all the time that, you signed up for this before you got here. You signed up. You watching made an agreement that you were going to go through all this stuff that you've gone through to get to where you're supposed to get to. Yes. And I love it. I love it. Go get her book right now. The link, I just put the link in the comments again. Go get it right now. I pinned the comment to my personal Facebook page. So go over to Amazon, click that link, grab a copy of the book. It's $15 and it'll change your life. So Deneen, thank you so much for coming on today. I love you. I love your energy, your beautiful, radiant smile. You're just a wonderful, wonderful person.
Thank you. So, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to everyone who's been on and shared this out and commented and everything else. So thank you all. Deneen, stay with me. Don't hang up. I'm gonna end the show, but thank you to everyone who's been here. You all have a great day and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, Deneen.
You're welcome.